If hardware is the tangible parts of a computer, then software are the intangibles. But what exactly is software? Software is the instructions that tell the computer what to do. Some synonyms you might have heard for software are apps, applications, programs, executables. So many different terms out there, but they all kind of do the same thing. They just tell the computer what to do. So there are two main types of software. We're going to make some important distinctions between them over the next few sections, over the next few slides. There's system software and then there's application software. You're more familiar with application software. So, application software are the apps that you download onto your computer, onto your phone to make that device more useful to you. So maybe you need to do some work, right, for your job or for school. You're going to download some productivity software. You're going to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Maybe you want to browse the web. You're going to do, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge. Social media is an example of application software because it solves the problem, right, of you connecting with others. So that's, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. These are all examples of application software. So again, application software is something that you install as a user to extend the features of your device to make that device useful to you. So it's not like system software. We're going to learn that system software is critical for the computer to work. Application software, it's not necessary for the computer to work, but it's definitely still useful because it makes, again, the computer useful to you. So many categories of application software. There's pretty much software these days for everything that you can think of. There's an app out there that will solve that problem. So another term related to software is going to be user interfaces. So this is how you interact with the software. User interface also refers how you interact with a computer or other devices, right? Smartphones, tablets, etc. Now, a good UI or user interface, right, is designed to make it easy for you to use, control, tell that program or device what to do. Now, we're going to find, right, that not all interfaces achieve that mission, right? Some will have a bigger learning curve, others will be a lot easier to use. The easy ones that we're used to are called GUIs, graphical user interfaces. We're going to learn that GUIs, use visuals, use icons, use buttons, things that are a little bit more accessible to us humans. Now, we didn't start off with GUIs when we, had our first computers. The first computers actually used command line interfaces. So that's where you actually had to type in text commands to tell the computer what to do. It wasn't as nice, right, as point and click, as, using a search bar or a menu or a toolbar. Those things didn't exist when the first computers were around. So Linux, unfortunately, does rely mostly on command line interface. Now, there are still graphical user interfaces in some of the modern distributions of Linux, but to actually use the true power of Linux, you're gonna have to learn the command line interface. That's the best way to interface with Linux to take advantage of all the scripting features, automation, all the things we're gonna learn towards the end of the class. But let's start with graphical user interface. What do I mean by GUI? Well, GUI is a visual interface. When you turn on your computer and there's icons on the screen, notice when I move my mouse, right? There's a little arrow here. There's a zoom in and out button, right? All these little buttons represent a GUI because they're things that we can see as a human. They're pictures, right? Icons, images, things that make sense to us humans. They're easy to learn. There's user friendly for beginners, mouse and keyboard friendly, which is great. Again, point and click is extremely useful. It's not as quick though. These visual interfaces aren't really meant for advanced computer tasks. CLI is actually going to beat out GUIs in this sense. So almost all application software today is GUI based. So when you download TikTok, right, of course you're not typing in commands to TikTok, right, to post something. You're clicking on buttons, you're clicking on icons, on menus. But for this class, we're not going to be using the GUI. We're going to be using the CLI. So here are some components of the GUI. So windows, icons, menus, buttons, scroll bars, dialog boxes, right, when something pops up to tell you something. Those are all examples of GUI components. Now, again, for this class, for Linux, we really got to learn the command line. So, command line interface, or CLI, is a text based interface where you type in commands to tell the system, software what to do. So, some of the benefits of a CLI is that you get more control over the system. It's really fast compared to GUIs, but you first need to learn right how to use it. You have to become sort of an advanced user. And it does use less resources. So to actually put up those images, those icons, those buttons on the screen, it does take more computing power. One of the drawbacks, of course, right, is there's a steeper learning curve. It's not obvious, right, how to change directories to open a folder when you don't have a nice picture of a folder on the screen. But we're going to learn all the commands one step at a time. So even though there is that steep learning curve, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't feel, overwhelming at any point in the class. And of course, right, if it ever does, I'm here to help you out. Please reach out, send me a message. Let's meet for office hours. And I'd be happy, right, to give you a deeper dive on any concept, any command, right? But honestly, with the slides and the videos, you should be mostly fine because we're going to take this very slow, one step at a time. So graphical user interfaces, or GUIs, or this should say CLI. Let me change that. So this is a command line interface. This is what it takes, right? So on the left is some of the reference manuals for some of the earlier operating systems, which we're going to talk about in a sec. So that's on the left. They were on eBay for like $100 because they're now like vintage, right? Computer history kind of objects. On the right, there is a computer running a command line interface. So you can see it's just black and white text, not really, elegant, not really easy to use. But as you'll see, right, it is possible to learn. And that's really the purpose of this class.